The story opens on an old man coughing, his words a ragged whisper. I am an earthling from a civilized society. Just then, a little girl enters his house carrying a bowl of food. Seeing his condition, she asks, Mr. Seo, are you okay? My mother sent this for you. The old man, Seo, thanks her. As the girl places the food on the ground, she replies, It's no problem. Please get well soon and make some more soap. With those words, she leaves, disappearing into a swirling snowstorm. Seo is an earthling, an inhabitant of a civilized world. It has been 50 years since he fell into this cursed one. He, Director Kim, and other employees were on their way to a company workshop when a landslide swept them away. When they regained consciousness, they found themselves in a strange world filled with house-sized, three-tailed foxes, massive twin-headed snakes, and warriors who flew through the sky on swords. It was a world straight out of the martial arts novels he used to read. Most of his colleagues, it turned out, thrived. Within 3 days, their destinies unfolded. Awed by their mythical talents, sage-like beings descended from the heavens and spirited them away. Only Seo and Director Kim were left behind. They, too, hoped for something special to happen, but neither of them possessed any remarkable abilities. Knowing little about this world, they resorted to manual labor. For 6 months, they worked menial jobs in a marketplace just to eat. One day, Director Kim declared he could no longer live like this. He spent all his money on a third-rate martial arts manual from a street vendor. Though everyone laughed, he mastered it in 3 months and became a martial artist. He rose through the ranks, learning increasingly advanced techniques until, as a powerful warrior, he left for the Jianghu, leaving Seo behind. Seo kept hoping for his own miracle, but it never came. 50 years later, he is just an old man, dying from a common cold, coughing up blood and clinging to the memory of Earth. He had tried his best to survive. He learned the language, worked as a laborer, bought a small plot of land, and built a house. He even found modest success making and selling soap, a novelty in this medieval-style world. But that ended when thieves stole his formula, replicated it, and forced him out of the market. Now he simply waits for death. Rejected by this world, a frustrated Seo cries out, What do you want from me? I tried my hardest, so what more must I do? He weeps, wondering why he was never chosen, why he was destined to lose everything. His energy fades and his eyelids grow heavy. As his consciousness slips away, he thinks that with just a little more power, he might have had a chance. Lying on his bed, sick and alone, Seo's life ends. And then, in a flash of brilliant light, he opens his eyes again. He looks down at his hands. They are not the wrinkled, gnarled hands of an old man, but are young and full of life. He is wearing the clothes from his old world, a blue shirt and sweatpants. He looks around and sees them all, Director Kim, Chief O, Section Chief John, and the others. It was in this moment of shock that Seo realized he hadn't been powerless after all. He had gained the ability of regression. This was his first one. Director Kim, his hair half-shaved, looks around in confusion. What's happening? We were just on our way to a workshop. He didn't know where they were, but Seo did. This was day 1. Seo vaguely recalled how they got here. An SUV, a landslide, a sudden flash. The 50-year-old memory was hazy. As he tried to piece it together, a voice called from behind. Hey, Deputy Manager Seo. But Seo was lost in thought. A single question dominating his mind. Now that I've regressed, how should I live? In regression novels, Seo thought, people thrive using their future knowledge. But all I know is how to make soap. Suddenly, a hand grabbed his shoulder. Manager Seo Yun-hyun, a voice shouted. The shout snapped Seo out of his daydream. He turned to see Section Chief Jian. Sorry, Seo started. I was just a bit startled. Swish. The sharp slap echoed, stinging Seo's face. Everyone stared in shock. Deputy Manager Seo! John screamed. You bastard! You dozed off at the wheel on a mountain road. You nearly got us all killed. Seo stood there dazed. The title Deputy Manager felt alien. He hadn't heard it in 50 years and didn't even realize John was talking to him. John's face was twisted with fury. Do you want to lose your job the moment we get back? The threat brought it all rushing back. Seo now remembered this man. Section Chief John Myung-hoon. A real son of a bitch. He was the nephew of the company's executive director and had snagged his position through pure nepotism. As Jeon lunged at him again, Chief O stepped between them. That's enough, John, Chief O said. It was a landslide. There was nothing he could have done. Aren't you angry, Chief? John retorted. This psycho was asleep at the wheel. That's why we're in this mess. Seo's memory sharpened. He had dozed off. But that was because John, who was originally supposed to drive, had dumped a week's worth of his own overdue work on Seo the night before, forcing him to stay up all night. "This stupid bastard," John shrieked, pointing at Seo. "We're stranded because of him." The memories of the next 50 years flooded Seo's mind. He remembered how, back then, he had been so stunned that he simply apologized. He'd accepted the blame and spent the next half-century doing the same, apologizing to bandits who robbed him, to martial artists who mocked him, and to officials who taxed him into poverty. But living through that hell had taught him one thing: you only bow to those you can't handle. Seo stood up straight. "Section Chief John," he said, his voice even, "I know you're upset, but now is not the time for pointing fingers." "You damn son of a bitch!" Jian roared and swung a punch at his face. "Are you looking for a fight?" That punch sealed it. There was no need to kneel before a man like this. Seo spun and drove his fist into John's face, sending him stumbling backward. The others gasped, their eyes wide with disbelief. Seo didn't stop. He pounced, raining down blows. His past life had been a lesson in pain. He'd been beaten by martial artists, bandits, and corrupt officials. Now, pinning John to the ground, he realized that brutal world had given him a gift his colleagues lacked: a capacity for violence. He knew that a blow to the eyes amplifies fear. He knew that a beaten man instinctively utters 2 words. "I'm sorry," John choked out, just as Seo knew he would. Seo might not have mythical talents or world-shaking martial arts, but he finally had the power to change his fate. Director Kim, Chief O, and the others stared at him, their faces pale with fear. Director Kim found his voice first, though it trembled. "Deputy Manager Seo, no matter the reason, how could you beat a colleague so brutally?" "You're right, Director Kim," Seo replied calmly, not bothering to argue. "I lost my temper. I apologize for frightening everyone." Knowing he would never see them again, he bowed deeply to the group. "I was the one driving. I'm sorry I couldn't do more." Director Kim softened slightly. "Section Chief Jian was too harsh," he admitted. "You couldn't have prevented a landslide. He overreacted." Director Kim insisted that Seo apologize to Jian. Seo complied. He knew Director Kim was destined to become one of this world's strongest martial artists, and supporting him now could yield future benefits. Getting on his good side was the smart play. Seo turned to Jian and offered a hand. "My reaction was uncalled for," he said, his voice flat. "I apologize." John, his face swollen and purple, looked ready to retaliate, but froze when he met Seo's eyes. They were completely empty of fear. Once things settled down, Director Kim gestured toward the woods. "We should try to find a village." "That's the logical thing to do," Seo agreed, though he knew the truth. This was the Ascension Path, a forest in the land of Murim, where the only rule was that the strong devour the weak. Immortals and warriors fought for power and honor here. There were no villages for miles. "The sun is setting," Seo said instead. "We should find a safe place to build a shelter for the night." Director Kim nodded. "But what about the car? We have a lot of supplies in there for the workshop." The car was gone forever, but Seo knew they wouldn't believe him if he said so. Wasting his breath was pointless. "Let's split up," he suggested. "One team can look for the car, the other for shelter. We'll meet back here before dark." A few hours later, Seo had a fire blazing inside a cave he'd found. As the group ate the root vegetables he had gathered, a black-haired girl voiced everyone's confusion. "I don't get it. We were in a car during a landslide. How did we end up here but the car didn't?" "This tastes like chestnuts," another girl commented. "Is it crunchy?" Seo asked, smiling faintly. "There's plenty more, so eat as much as you'd like." Director Kim chuckled. "This is a serious situation, but thanks to Manager Seo, it almost feels like fun. I always knew you were dependable." Seo noticed John sulking in a corner, refusing to eat. Director Kim raised his voice slightly, ensuring John could hear. "Manager Seo, if I recall, you were so tired because you worked late last night, right?" "He's right," a brown-haired girl chimed in. "Their manager is incredibly diligent, and it feels like we're camping, thanks to the cave he found," added a red-haired girl. Seo knew they were right. In his past life, it took them hours of wandering aimlessly to find this cave. He just shrugged. "I was lucky." They all laughed and told him to just accept the compliment. Seo allowed himself a small smile, soaking in the moment. It would be the last time any of them laughed together. The next morning, Seo was on his knees, trembling as he offered greetings to the Lord of the Forest. It was a colossal, 7-tailed fox with glowing red eyes. The fox smiled, a chilling sight. "Human," it rumbled, its voice ancient. "You have a unique scent. In my 1,000 years, I have never encountered one like it. The commotion woke the black-haired girl. What's going on? She asked as she stepped out of the cave. Her eyes fell on the fox, and a terrified scream ripped from her throat. Her shriek woke the others. One by one, they emerged from the cave, their own screams joining hers as they saw the monstrous creature. Show some manners, SEO yelled at them over his shoulder. Get on your knees before the Lord of the Forest. The fox's smile widened. Every time I meet your kind, I am reminded how foolish and rude you are. Normally, I would tear you limb from limb. However, it purred, looking at Seo. Since one of you knows his place, I shall be merciful. Its red eyes swept over the terrified group. That said, you must pay a toll for trespassing in my territory. Offer me an arm, and I will permit you to live. The demand hung in the air, turning their fear to ice. Seo's own heart hammered against his ribs. He remembered this moment vividly from his past life. He remembered the screaming, the panic, and how the enraged fox had slaughtered them all. Seo felt a flicker of relief. At least this time, the fox appreciated his manners instead of immediately tearing them all to shreds. Licking its chops, the fox asked which of them would offer an arm. It's just one arm, Seo calculated. A small price to pay. Besides, he knew that the cultivators who would arrive in 2 days could easily heal a lost limb. He had even prepared a pain-dulling herb in advance. Steeling himself, Seo pushed up his sleeve and extended his trembling arm toward the beast. I will offer my arm, he announced. The others stared, shocked that he would sacrifice himself for them. You know your place, human, the fox rumbled, its maw opening wide. In return, I will make this quick. It lunged. A scream of pure agony tore from Seo's throat as the fox's jaws clamped down, severing his arm completely. His colleagues looked away, unable to watch the gruesome sight. Blinding pain consumed him. With tears streaming down his face, Seo fumbled for the herb with his remaining hand and shoved it into his mouth. After swallowing the arm whole, the fox seemed disappointed. I thought you might taste different, given your scent, it commented, but you are the same as any other human. Worse even, with all the impurities in your blood. As the fox spoke, the herb began its work, dulling the excruciating pain and allowing Seo to think again. He bowed his head. I apologize that my offering was not to your liking. The fox was uninterested. You may remain in my territory for 7 days, it declared, as it turned to leave. My divinity will keep you from dying here. With a single powerful leap, it launched into the sky and vanished. The moment it was gone, the others rushed to Seo's side. Everyone inside, he grunted, staggering to his feet. I'll explain everything. Inside the cave, Seo told them what the fox had revealed to him earlier that morning. We are in a land called Murim. The name sent a shockwave through the group. Murim? Director Kim repeated in disbelief. Like in the stories? It doesn't matter, Seo said, his voice strained. What matters is that we are safe for 1 week because I paid the toll. Only a week? Director Kim pressed. What happens after that? Seo took a ragged breath. Next week, it will demand another price. Stunned silence fell over the group. As the herb's sedative effect grew stronger, Seo's eyelids became heavy. I'm going to rest, he mumbled, and promptly fell asleep. He awoke 15 hours later, alone in the dark cave. Outside he could hear his colleagues' hushed, angry voices. How can you even say that after he sacrificed his own arm? Chief O was demanding of Jeon. So what's the plan? John shot back. Who's going to volunteer an arm or a leg every single week? Manager Seo is useful, Chief O argued. He found us food in this shelter. Exactly, Jeon said with cold logic. We learned everything we can from him for the next week. He's already lost an arm. He's not going to last long anyway. We make him the sacrifice again. Seo, listening from the shadows, felt a cold fury rise within him. Now that he was weak, John saw him as nothing more than livestock to be periodically butchered for their survival. His hand closed around a fist-sized rock. With the brutality he had learned over 50 years, killing a soft modern man like John would be easy, even with one arm. He watched as John continued trying to persuade the others. He raised the rock, his knuckles white. The urge to act was overwhelming, but he held back. Killing John now would be reckless. Fear was making them irrational, and a cruel act would permanently damage his standing with Director Kim. He let the rock drop and silently retreated into the cave. Suddenly, he heard Chief O's voice again, sharp and final. Shut your mouth, John, unless you want your other ankle broken. A small, grim laugh escaped Seo's lips. He was right. They were good people, just trapped in an impossible situation. The next morning, as the sun climbed the sky, The group gathered outside the cave. This time, a monstrous two-headed snake slithered into view. Unlike the ravenous fox, the two-headed snake only requested a small amount of blood. Seo recognized it as the same creature that, in his past life, had preyed on Chief O after he'd lost his limbs. This time, hearing the modest demand, a nervous Chief O offered his own arm. The snake took a sip and immediately recoiled, vomiting onto the forest floor. "Disgusting," it hissed. "This is the worst human blood I have ever tasted." Chief O flushed with anger, but Seo knew the truth. The blood of a 21st century office worker, saturated with nicotine and cholesterol, must have been truly foul. Seo turned his attention elsewhere. "John Myung-hun," he called out. "Come with me. We need to gather herbs." John stared, shocked. "Did you just use my full name?" Ignoring the question, Seo asked simply, "Are you hungry?" When John sullenly admitted he was, Seo walked over to him. "I'll teach you which fruits and herbs are edible." He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I plan to offer my other arm to the fox next week. If I die, someone needs to know how to keep everyone else alive." The color drained from Jaeon's face. He realized with dawning horror that Seo had overheard their conversation last night. Trapped, he had no choice but to agree. "The thank you." Seo had to hide a smirk. "Thank me?" he thought. "The fox isn't coming back, and you'll never get the chance to use this knowledge anyway." He led John to a grove of fruit trees and began his tutelage. "John Myung-hun," Seo barked. "How many times do I have to tell you? Not that one. Concentrate." "Sorry," John mumbled, reaching for a different fruit. "That one will kill you," Seo said flatly. For hours, Seo relentlessly ordered Jian around, forcing him to dig and forage. Exhausted, Jian finally begged for a break, panting from the non-stop labor. A cold satisfaction settled over Seo. This was exactly how John had hazed him when he first joined the company. "We need to finish before dusk," Seo stated, offering no rest. "Hurry up." As they worked, John's shovel struck something large. He pulled it from the earth to reveal a massive gnarled root. "This thing is huge," he exclaimed. "Is this wild ginseng?" "Something like that," Seo replied vaguely. It was actually a yellow bamboo root. In the energy-rich soil of the Ascension Path, the normally pinky-sized roots grew to monstrous proportions. While useless to true cultivators, it was an incredibly precious herb for martial artists, capable of greatly increasing their internal ki. "This will be perfect for Director Kim," Seo thought. They unearthed 2 more just like it. "Is it really okay to take this much?" Jian asked, awestruck. "It's fine," Seo said. "Take off your shirt and wrap them up." As Jian complied, Seo glanced toward the horizon. He saw the sun dipping low and noticed a faint, shimmering distortion in the air, a crack in space. It was almost time. The cultivators were coming. "Let's head back," Seo announced. As they neared the cave, the shimmering crack in space exploded. A shockwave of pure spiritual energy erupted into the sky, and at that instant, John collapsed, clutching his head and screaming. Chief O and Manager Kang dropped to the ground alongside him, all 3 writhing in agony. "What's happening to them?" Director Kim cried in panic. Just then, 3 figures descended from the sky. The first, a man in radiant gold robes named Byuko, surveyed the screaming trio. "What a surprise," he mused. "To think we'd find such raw talent here." "Back off, Byuko," snarled a second man in black robes. "Haeogwak, they are mine." "Shameless," scoffed the third, who wore brilliant blue. Terrified, Director Kim stammered. The cultivators ignored him, their eyes scanning the group and dismissing the mortals. Only 3 possessed spiritual roots. Byuko raised a hand, and a crackling ball of lightning formed in his palm. He launched it at Jian, whose screams intensified as thousands of volts coursed through him. When the assault ceased, Byuko looked amazed. "Incredible, the physique of heavenly golden thunder." "My turn," Haeogwak said, pushing past him. He produced a strange musical instrument and began to play. Manager Kang, hands clamped over her ears, let out a shriek so powerful it echoed through the entire forest. Haeogwak's eyes widened with excitement. The ghostly yin, transforming immortal root. I never thought I'd see one in person. Finally, the cultivator in blue landed softly on the ground. He placed a hand on Chief O's shoulder, injecting a stream of spiritual energy into him. "A unique holy body," he determined. "What is going on?" Chief O gasped, overwhelmed. The cultivator smiled. "All 3 of you possess the talent to change the world. I will take you as disciples of the Azure Heaven Creation sect. How does that sound?" Chief O felt as though the man's very presence could crush him. He couldn't breathe, let alone refuse. Before he could answer, Haeogwak swooped down. "Join the Black Ghost Valley instead." We offer immortality, the power to overturn the heavens, fame and wealth. I will see to it you have it all within a century. Buko descended as well. What nonsense are you spouting? The Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder Sect is clearly the most suitable for them. As they argued, Director Kim stepped forward desperately. Please, can you just get us out of this forest? We'll all die here. They ignored him as if he were air. Buko uncapped a small bottle. Mortals worry far too much, he said with disdain, looking at Director Kim. How did you even reach the ascension path with such worthless bodies? He aimed the bottle at Jean, who was sucked inside with a final, desperate scream for help. The blue-robed cultivator prepared to leave with Chief O but paused to look at Seo. A small smile touched his lips. It seems one of you lost an arm to that fox. Judging by the wound, he offered it willingly. He gestured, and a wave of power washed over Seo. You may be a mere mortal, but you have guts. Seo stared as his arm completely regenerated. Thank you. After Haoguak had likewise secured Manager Kang, the three cultivators rose into the air. As they departed, their voices echoed back. We have cleared the ascension path of all beasts on our way here. It should be safe for the next 10 years. Wait! Director Kim shouted, chasing futilely after them. Hold on. Where do we go? Which way is out? He called their names. John, Chief O, Kang. But it was useless. They vanished into the sky. A wave of familiar disappointment washed over Seo. It had been the exact same 50 years ago. No matter how much they begged, the cultivators had treated them like insects. Still, he was relieved to have his arm back. Director Kim finally collapsed, gasping for breath. What are we supposed to do now? He despaired. But just as all hope seemed lost, he saw dozens more beams of light streaking across the sky, following the same path the cultivators had taken. Director Kim watched the lights, confused. What are all those streaks in the sky? He wondered aloud. Is something over there? Despite the mysterious sight, he couldn't abandon his team, so he turned back to the cave. The next day brought a fierce thunderstorm, with lightning cracking all around. The remaining four, Director Kim, Manager Kim, Deputy Manager O, and Seo, huddled together in the cave for shelter. Deputy Manager O's condition was worsening. She lay on the cold ground, coughing up blood. Seo, is there some kind of herb we can find? Manager Kim asked desperately, her voice filled with panic. She's in terrible shape. Knowing what was to come, Seo answered calmly. Let's just wait a little longer. Someone might show up to heal her. Manager Kim gave him a bewildered look. Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed from the cave entrance. A figure emerged from the rain-swept darkness. Mortals in the ascension path, the stranger's voice resonated through the cave, are like ants caught in a battle between dragons. Director Kim immediately leaped in front of the others, shielding them. Who are you? He demanded. The man smiled, his presence filling the small space. I am the Sea Dragon King, Seo Huiol. The woman is controlling the storm, Seo Huiol announced. Everyone stared in shock. This tempest appeared from nothing, the Sea Dragon King explained, gesturing to the unconscious deputy manager O. She is the cause. She must be a master of storm sorcery. He looked intrigued, and yet, she is an ordinary mortal, without a trace of cultivation. How can she wield such power, and unconsciously at that? Very strange. We are the ones who are confused, Seo interjected. We've only been here a short time. Yet one powerful being after another shows up and takes our companions away. The Sea Dragon King broke into laughter. Are you telling me that you stumbled into this world with several colleagues of extraordinary potential? Then, as if on cue, powerful cultivators appeared to claim them, and now, here I am, conveniently standing before this woman? That's exactly what happened, Seo confirmed. The Sea Dragon King smiled. Dear mortal, do you know where you are? This is the Ascension Path, the gateway to the upper realm. In a few months, a dimensional rift, the Ascension Gate, will open nearby. This only happens once every 1,000 years. Countless cultivators and spiritual beings are already gathering here to ascend. Is it really so surprising that you would cross paths with us? The explanation finally clicked for Seo, but Director Kim was still confused. Those cultivators said they were taking our colleagues to join their sects. How can they do that if they're all ascending to another realm? A concept likely difficult for a mortal to grasp, Seo Huiol said patiently. He produced a bottle, similar to the one Buko had used. We have techniques to shrink vast structures and store them in magical tools like this. Those cultivators have likely stored their entire sects in such items, intending to bring everyone to the upper realm with them. In fact, he added, patting his own bottle, I have one of the undersea castles of my Sea Dragon clan stored right here. 1,800 of my kin lie dormant inside. SEO and Director Kim's jaws dropped. The Sea Dragon King gently patted Deputy Manager O's head. So peculiar, so intriguing. If she joins my clan, she could become something truly extraordinary. Get away from her, Director Kim shouted, lunging forward. He was instantly slammed to his knees, pinned by an immense invisible force. Every time he struggled, the pressure intensified. Seo Hueo lifted Deputy Manager O into his arms. I will give her my blood and accept her as my kin. This is the best outcome for all of you. He then turned his glowing green eyes on Director Kim. A piece of advice. Do not ask questions of high-level cultivators. As he spoke, the pressure on Director Kim and Seo doubled, feeling as if their very eyeballs would pop from their sockets. I answered your questions out of generosity, the Sea Dragon King said, walking toward the mouth of the cave. Most would have killed you for the impertinence. With that, he stepped into the raging storm, and his form exploded into that of a colossal dragon that seemed to touch the clouds. With a deafening roar, he soared into the sky. The next morning the storm was gone, replaced by clear, quiet skies. The silence was too much for Manager Kim. The avalanche, the monsters, the immortals, the abductions, it all crashed down on her at once. She began to lose her grip on reality. Seo approached her gently. Manager Kim. She grabbed his arm, her body shaking uncontrollably. Manager Seo, please, she begged, tears streaming down her face. They can't take you too. If you're gone, I can't survive here alone. Seo wanted to promise her he would stay, to offer some small comfort. But looking at her devastated face, he knew. Unfortunately, their time was up. Just then, Manager Kim screamed, clutching her head. She collapsed to the ground, her eyes wide with terror. Something's coming, she shrieked. Director Kim rushed to her side. What's wrong with her now? Suddenly, the entire jungle erupted into chaos. Birds screeched from the sky and animals fled in a panicked stampede. Manager Kim trembled violently, gasping a single word. Before a confused Director Kim could react, an old man astride a great mechanical lion appeared before them. He looked down, shocked. Mortals! How did mere mortals find their way to the ascension path? He studied them for a moment, then chuckled. Ah, I see. The space around the ascension gate becomes unstable just before it opens. You must have been caught in a spatial storm. He laughed heartily, praising his own genius. Dismounting his lion, he approached the group. Now, which one of you just emitted that massive wave of consciousness? It was so powerful, I thought a sage from the upper realm had descended. His eyes fell on the whimpering Manager Kim. Was it her? Who are you? Director Kim demanded, stepping between the old man and Manager Kim. She's our colleague. With a casual flick of his finger, the old man sent Director Kim flying. Seo reacted instantly, lunging to catch his friend. He managed to break Director Kim's fall, but the force sent them both crashing violently to the ground. Thanks, Deputy Manager Seo, Director Kim said, scrambling to his feet, unharmed. Seo didn't respond. Panicked, Director Kim helped him up and gasped. The back of Seo's shirt was torn to shreds, revealing a raw, bloody injury from the impact. Seo, are you all right? Seo managed, his voice strained with pain. The old man ignored them completely. He strode over to Manager Kim and tilted her chin up with his fingers. Child, let me take you as my disciple. You have no spiritual root, but I can awaken one for you. I wonder, he mused to himself, what would happen if such a unique consciousness were to evolve into a cultivator's divine sense? Tears streamed down Manager Kim's face as she looked desperately towards Seo and Director Kim for help. The old man followed her gaze and scoffed. Still clinging to worldly attachments, even after I have offered to take you in? The old man's eyes flashed with anger. With a gesture, an invisible force seized Seo and Director Kim by the neck, hoisting them into the air. They clawed at their throats, struggling to breathe. I will sever your worldly attachments for you, the old man told Manager Kim coolly. Seeing her friends choking, Manager Kim grew hysterical. Please stop, she begged, tears streaming down her face. I'll do anything you ask. Just spare them. Then you must forget them, the old man commanded. I will. I understand, she sobbed. Satisfied, the old man released his grip, and Seo and Director Kim dropped to the ground gasping for air. But leaving them here will only prolong your attachment, the old man mused. I shall return them to a mortal nation. He waved his hand, and a swirling vortex of energy tore open the space before them. Your colleagues will be scattered through this dimensional rift, he informed Manager Kim. Not even I will know where they land. The portal's pull was immediate and overwhelming. Director Kim was sucked in before he could even comprehend what was happening. In the split second before he too was consumed, Seo lunged, grabbing the precious bundle of herbs he had collected. Then he was gone. Manager Kim could only watch and cry as the portal snapped shut, plunging everything into darkness. Then, sound rushed in, the din of a crowd, the cry of a street vendor, finest silks in all of Yangguo, newly arrived scriptures from Shengji. Seo was the first to wake, finding himself and an unconscious Director Kim sprawled on the cobblestones of an alleyway. He stumbled to his feet and peered out at a bustling street filled with unfamiliar faces. Where am I? He wondered. This wasn't the place he had landed in his first life. The old man had been telling the truth. Their destination was random. He stepped out of the alley and a strange sense of déjà vu washed over him. He scanned his surroundings, his eyes landing on a massive 10-story pagoda that dominated the skyline. Recognition struck him like a physical blow. He knew this place. He had lived here for 50 years. This was Seokyeong, the capital city of the Yangguo nation. After taking in the scene, he returned to the alley and roused Director Kim. Manager Seo, Director Kim groaned, his expression exhausted and bewildered. I can't keep up with any of this anymore. Seo sat beside him. I feel the same way, he admitted. I wish this was all just a dream. It's just the two of us now, Director Kim said, a note of disbelief in his voice. But I guess we should be grateful we weren't taken by those monsters. Seo remained silent. Even with his knowledge of the future, this was uncharted territory. In his past life, he was just a powerless herb gatherer. He knew nothing of this new beginning. We can't stay here forever, Seo finally said. Let's get out of this alley. Director Kim agreed, and the two of them stepped onto the main street. Immediately, they became the center of attention. People stared, pointing and whispering to each other in a language Director Kim didn't understand. What are they saying? He asked Seo, unnerved. It sounds like Chinese. Why is everyone staring at us? They're saying our clothes look funny, Seo told him calmly. Director Kim replied, shocked. Seo managed a small smile. Don't worry, I know a bit of Chinese. Director Kim opened his mouth to ask another question, but seeing the bloody state of Seo's back, he held his tongue and simply said, it was a lie, of course. The local language used similar characters to Chinese, but the pronunciation was completely different. In his past life, Seo had endured 2 months of ridicule from beggars just to learn the basics. This time there was no need for that. He produced the massive roots he'd salvaged. Should we get some new clothes? Director Kim looked confused. How? I doubt they'll take our money. Without explaining, Seo led him straight to the city's largest medicine hall. The owner's eyes went wide at the sight of the herbs. Are you really selling something so precious? He stammered. Seo put on a tough front. These yellow bamboo roots are at least 800 years old, he declared. Of course, the owner agreed, his hands trembling slightly. These are worth at least 15 silver ingots. The sum made even Seo's heart skip a beat. He'd never held that much money in his entire past life. He maintained his composure. Then hurry up and pay us. Yes, yes. The owner quickly counted out the silver. With their newfound wealth, they bought new clothes and, to Director Kim's astonishment, a small house. We're going to live here? He asked, dumbfounded. Yes, Seo confirmed. And from today, I'll teach you the language. Director Kim beamed, thanking him profusely. Seo acted as if everything was fine, but after bribing some officials for identity plaques and purchasing the house, they were left with just a single silver ingot. The capital is an expensive place, he thought grimly. Later, Director Kim noticed that the back of Seo's new shirt was already stained red with blood. Seeing how much Seo had done for him, an idea struck him. Since we're starting over in a new place, he began, why don't you just call me by my name? Seo looked up, surprised. If you're okay with that. Director Kim smiled warmly. Thank you, Seo Yunyun. That night, after they had settled in, Seo laid out the 2 remaining roots on the table. I sold one of these to get us started, he explained. But once these are gone, we'll have no income. We need to figure out a way to earn money. Director Kim stared at the roots, his mind racing. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. Let's sell the others, he proposed, and use the silver to start a business. It was a good plan. With their capital and Director Kim's business acumen from his former life, they could certainly make a living. But Seo found himself thinking, is making a living enough? I've regressed. Shouldn't I dream bigger than that? Seo knew Director Kim was a martial genius. In his past life, the man had become a master in months just by reading a third-rate manual. With proper training, he became one of the most powerful men in the Zhonghu. But what if, Seo thought, He learned advanced techniques from the very beginning. A smile crept onto his face. He could accelerate the birth of the world's greatest swordsman by 30 years and reap the benefits himself. Director Kim, Seo began, this world is called Murim. It's a world of martial arts. The words instantly caught his friend's attention. If we set up a business, who knows when some gang might come after us? Shouldn't we at least learn some self-defense? Director Kim's face lit up. Martial arts? He repeated, his voice full of excitement. But the sects don't teach outsiders. How would we learn? SEO hid a grin. As a former Murim novel nerd, he knew exactly how to hook him. This city has 7 major sects, he explained. On the orthodox side, you have the demon-slaying sect, the self-binding temple, the suppressing birdhouse, and the 7 mysteries sect. On the unorthodox side are the Wolf Fang Gang, the Dark Knight Association, and the dragon-fighting stronghold. The orthodox are called the 4 stars, the unorthodox the 3 demons. He continued, the demon-slaying sect focuses on sword and blade techniques. The self-binding temple is Buddhist. The suppressing birdhouse specializes in intelligence. And the 7 mysteries sect teaches a bit of everything. Not much is known about the 3 demons, other than that they're masters of stealth and sorcery. SEO paused. So, which one do you like? Without a moment's hesitation, Director Kim replied, the demon-slaying sect. A true martial artist wields a blade. It was a fitting choice for the man who would one day be called the world's greatest swordsman. How do you know all this? Director Kim asked, suddenly suspicious. SEO just laughed. I overheard some martial artists talking earlier. 3 months later, after selling the last of the roots, they stood before the gates of the demon-slaying sect. A muscular guard blocked their path. What do you want? My older brother and I have heard of the sect's fame and wish to learn its martial arts, Seo said politely. The guard eyed their fine clothes but scoffed. He's a bit old to start learning, the guard said, gesturing to Director Kim. Seo discreetly pressed a silver coin into the guard's hand. Could we perhaps speak to someone of higher status? Even simple self-defense training would be enough. The bribe worked. The guard led them inside to meet with a sect elder. You wish to learn self-defense? The elder asked. You wish to learn the best you have to offer, Seo declared, placing a heavy box of silver on the table between them. The elder's eyes widened at the sight of the glittering nuggets. Very well, the elder conceded. I suppose one of you may join as an external disciple. He pocketed the silver. But know this. We offer no special treatment for donations, and we will only accept one of you. Seo was stunned. All that silver, the price of a priceless bamboo root, for a single, unsupported disciple slot. Director Kim looked outraged, ready to protest, but Seo quickly cut him off. We accept, Seo said with a bow. My brother will be the one to learn. Director Kim stared at him, speechless. As the elder left, he instructed Director Kim to join the other external disciples in the training yard. Once he was gone, Director Kim turned on Seo. What's the point if only I'm learning? If I'd known it was this expensive, I would have chosen another sect. Don't worry about it, Seo said with a reassuring smile. I was never good at sports anyway. I'll use the remaining money to start a business and support you. You just focus on mastering the sword. Director Kim was floored by the sacrifice. I'll do my best, he promised, though his voice was hesitant. I don't know if I can do it. Believe in yourself, Seo said firmly. You can. With a final grateful nod, Director Kim headed for the training yard. 7 months later, the demon-slaying sect was in an uproar. At an internal competition, an outsider, a man who had only been training for 7 months, had single-handedly defeated every one of their prized disciples. The sect elders watched from their platform, their faces a mixture of fury and disbelief. Mastering a martial art requires a deep understanding of its core principles, and a body perfectly attuned to its movements. But some talents are so profound they seem to laugh at the conventional process, soaring through stages that take others decades to cross. The demon-slaying sect, the greatest sect in Seokyeong, was filled with such talents. Yet, an outsider had just defeated them all. In a mere 7 months, Director Kim had not only learned their absolute dragon saber technique, but had become a first-rate warrior. The Grand Elder was furious. Reaching the first-rate stage was thought to be impossible without years of dedicated training, let alone for an outsider who had joined with a simple donation. It was a humiliation. It looked as though the sect's proud tradition had knelt before one man. He immediately ordered Director Kim to be captured. Now, Director Kim was imprisoned in a guarded house, suspected of being a spy, and for some reason, Seo was imprisoned with him. Aren't you worried? Seo asked, watching Director Kim calmly practice his sword forms. Director Kim just laughed. About what? About being a suspected spy, SEO exclaimed. In the novels, they destroy your key core for something like this. True, Director Kim admitted, pausing his practice. But for some reason, I feel like I'm about to break through another wall. If I can just cross it, I think I can reach the next stage. SEO stared at him, dumbfounded. What kind of monster are you? You just became a first-rate warrior and you're already nearing the next level. That next level was Martial Peak, a stage reached only by sect leaders and the most powerful elders. In the entire nation of Yanggo, only 1,000 so-called absolute masters had attained it. For all practical purposes, it was the final stage of martial arts. SEO's initial estimate had been wrong. This wouldn't speed up the birth of the world's greatest swordsman by 30 years, it would be closer to 40. For 7 days they remained in captivity. Director Kim spent every waking moment meditating and practicing. On the 7th day, the QE he had gathered coalesced above his head, forming 3 ethereal lotus flowers made of pure energy. SEO watched in awe. These were the flowers of Qi, a phenomenon only witnessed when a martial artist reached the absolute peak. Director Kim inhaled, and the lotuses dissolved into his body. He stood up, a newfound power radiating from him. "I've crossed the barrier," he said, a confident smile on his face. "I'm not so afraid of the demon-slaying sect's leader anymore." SEO could only laugh. "Your talent is beyond anything I could have imagined." "I'm impressed with myself too," Director Kim admitted. "I never knew I had it in me. Maybe that's why I always loved those martial arts novels." Just then, the door burst open. An elder, flanked by a squad of guards, strode in. "Here comes Jim Young-hoon and his comrade," he announced, unfurling a scroll. "By order of the sect leader, we are to destroy the key core of the spy who dared to steal the martial arts of the demon-slaying sect." Director Kim's expression hardened. SEO, terrified, tried to explain. "Wait, we're not spies. We were just—" The elder backhanded him across the face. "Silence. We have witnesses who heard you speaking in a strange coded language." He gestured to his men. "Restrain them." But before the guards could move, Director Kim's sword was in his hand. In a flash of steel too fast to follow, the elder's sword hand was severed, his own weapon clattering to the floor. The room froze. Director Kim leveled his blade at the stunned elder's throat. "This is the first sect I have ever joined," he said, his voice cold as ice. "I am no spy." A guard lunged, ignoring the elder's fate. Before his blade even came close, Director Kim moved, a blur of motion. In seconds, every guard in the room was on the ground, clutching their disarmed hands. The survivors scrambled away, screaming that he was a peak-level master, running to inform the sect leader. "I'm going to visit the other sects," Director Kim said calmly amidst the chaos. "What will you do?" "I'll go with you," CEO replied immediately. "Let's start with the dragon-fighting stronghold." Director Kim grinned. "You go on ahead. I'll meet you there after I deal with the elders and their leader." A few hours later, CEO stood panting at the top of the dragon-fighting stronghold's highest peak. Director Kim was already there, leaning casually on his sword. "What took you so long?" he asked. "You're just too fast," Seo gasped, his eyes drawn to the blood dripping from Director Kim's blade. He remembered a time when his friend had lectured him about violence. This world had changed them. He wished they could go back, not to the day they arrived, but all the way back to their mundane lives on Earth. If he regressed again, that's what he would wish for. But for now, they had to do what was necessary to survive. After the betrayal by the demon-slaying sect, Director Kim conquered the dragon-fighting stronghold. Over the next 2 years, he traveled across Yanggo, defeating every major sect. By the 3rd year, having shattered the emblems of every house, he was known as the greatest martial artist under the heavens. He used this fame to unite the fractured martial world, creating the Martial Alliance. 7 years passed. Director Kim and Seo became as close as blood brothers. One day, Director Kim presented Seo with a custom martial arts manual. "This is the Severing Mountain Sword," he said. "I created it for you, hoping you will inherit a will strong enough to cut down mountains. If you master this, you can reach Martial Peak." SEO was stunned. The manual, which included the Dragon Vein Qi method, was a true first-rate art, far beyond anything he had ever seen. He began practicing immediately, but the result was always the same. He would be on the ground before he even knew what happened. "You really have no talent," Director Kim would say with a sigh. It was true. Even with a personalized technique created by the world's best and one-on-one training, Seo barely scraped his way to the 3rd-rate level after a full year. "It can't be helped," Seo finally admitted. "At least I have some talent for medicine. Everyone is good at something, I suppose." Then, a decade after their arrival, Seo witnessed a miracle. As Director Kim meditated, 5 spheres of pure Kui, like radiant flowers, bloomed above his head. SEO knew this was the legendary 5 energies converging to the origin. A massive wave of internal energy erupted from Director Kim's body. The sound of cracking bones and shifting joints filled the air as his white hair darkened to black. The transformation was a divine spectacle, releasing so much power that Seo couldn't even stand nearby. When the light subsided, Seo stared in shock. Before him stood a young man. It was Director Kim, but decades younger. "What's so surprising?" the young Director Kim asked, his voice now youthful and vibrant. "Brother," Seo stammered, "you look younger than me." This was skeletal restructuring, a legendary rebirth. Director Kim laughed, a sound full of life. "I feel like I could do anything." "The world will be shocked when they see you," Seo said. "Certainly," Director Kim agreed, pulling on his robes. He walked over to Seo, a serious expression on his new face. "It's about time I handed over the martial alliance to the next leader." Seo knew his friend was right. The leader of the martial alliance needed to be a master, but no one seemed to truly understand the essence of martial arts. "That's because you're an anomaly," Seo laughed. "Where else in the world is there a genius like you?" Director Kim gazed out at the disciples training in the courtyard. "Even so, we need to find someone." 25 years later, Seo sat in a quiet room, his hand guiding a brush over paper. 35 years had passed since he'd begun this new life. His hair was now gray, and at 65, he often wondered where the perpetually young Director Kim was. A year after his transformation, his friend had retired as alliance leader. SEO had wanted to retire too, but he was needed to stabilize the chaotic martial world and had remained as the alliance's strategist for many years. Director Kim had said he wanted to wander the world. He hadn't even come to Seo's retirement ceremony. Now Seo stepped outside for some fresh air, the loneliness of his large retirement home closing in on him. It was far too big for one person. A rustle in the bushes startled him. "Who's there?" he called out, his senses on alert. He moved closer and was stunned to see a familiar face emerge, dressed in rags. It was Director Kim. "What's with the beggar's outfit?" SEO demanded. "Why didn't you come to my retirement? Where have you been?" Director Kim just laughed, a weary sound, and collapsed onto the grass. "Did something happen?" SEO asked, rushing to his side. Staring up at the sky, Director Kim spoke. "I truly thought I was a martial genius. Isn't that right, Seo? If I'm not a genius, what am I?" He sat up, a self-deprecating look on his face. "I am a martial arts genius. At least in this kingdom, among ordinary people like me, no one can match my talent." "Ordinary?" SEO scoffed. "How are you ordinary? Everyone under the heavens knows you as the world's #1. "I fought them," Director Kim interrupted, his voice low and serious. "The cultivators. Do you remember them, Seo? The monsters who took our friends 35 years ago?" Of course, Seo remembered. He'd lived it twice. He knew the cultivators secretly manipulated the Yan Kingdom from the shadows. As the martial alliance grew, the cultivators began to interfere more directly. To defy them was to defy the nation itself, a risk Director Kim wouldn't take. So, he had stepped down as leader to hunt them as a lone warrior. "They were impossible to find," Director Kim continued. "And when I did find one, they'd just laugh and say I wasn't worth their time before vanishing with some illusion. But 5 years ago, I finally got my fight." "Did you win?" SEO asked, leaning in eagerly. Director Kim confirmed. Seo laughed with relief. "If you'd pulled a stunt like that when you were alliance leader, I'd have dragged you back by the scruff of your neck." But Director Kim shook his head, his expression grim. He was in the chi condensation realm. "I fought with everything I had, and I barely managed to scratch his fingertip." The words hit Seo like a physical blow. "He said if I could graze his body, he'd count it as my win," Director Kim clarified. "So, technically, I won. But still." The disappointment in his voice was palpable. Was this cultivator one of their great masters or something? SEO asked, trying to grasp the situation. Director Kim said, his voice barely a whisper. "He told me his realm was the second lowest in the entire cultivation world. In our terms, he was just a second-rate warrior." SEO was stunned into silence. "What nonsense are you talking about?" he finally managed. He knew cultivators were powerful, but Director Kim's martial arts were godlike. He could walk on air, slice through ancient steel as if it were tofu. And yet, this genius could only scratch the fingertip of a bottom-tier cultivator? "I was a frog in a well," Director Kim said, his face etched with disappointment. "We can never stand against them, Seo. They're like natural disasters." A cold sweat broke out on Seo's skin. The stories were terrifying. Then, Director Kim pulled a severed hand from his pocket. Today though, he said with a grim smile. I took his wrist. Hope surged in Seo. Doesn't that mean you've surpassed him? Director Kim replied flatly. He just slapped a talisman on the stump and a new hand grew back. He stood up, his shoulders slumping. It seems my martial path ends here. What do you mean? Seo asked, his heart sinking. I came to say goodbye. He let out a hollow laugh. The cultivator said he respected my willpower. He's offered to take me into his sect. I'll probably start as the lowest ranking disciple. Become a cultivator? An immortal? Seo asked. But they said it was impossible without spiritual roots. For a mortal, reaching the stage of 5 energies converging to the origin is the equivalent of being born with the 5-element spiritual root, Director Kim explained. We have to spend our entire lives just to manifest the basic quality they are born with. He raised his sword, and with a single, fluid motion, he sliced open the very fabric of space, creating a shimmering doorway in the air. I'm going now, he said, stepping toward the portal. I have to aim for a higher stage. Before disappearing, he tossed a book to Seo. My last gift to you. Stay safe. And then he was gone. Seo looked at the title, Record of Transcending Cultivation and Exhausting Martial Arts. It was a journal of one man's attempt to surpass gods through sheer will. He stared at the empty space where his friend had been. Where are you going without me? He whispered, but only silence answered. And so, the years passed. 50 years after his arrival in this world, Seo lay on his deathbed, succumbing to a common cold. Just like the first time, it was fate. No matter how a man struggled, he could never escape it. In the end, the only things that had changed were the quality of his house and his bed. He died on the exact same day. He had lived this life to its absolute fullest, desperate to avoid the regrets of his past. He had been too busy to even consider marriage. He had united the martial sects of Yangguo and experienced all the fame and wealth a mortal could desire. But a profound emptiness echoed in his heart. If we had just struggled a little harder, he wondered, could we have reached the sky together? His body trembled with a sense of utter powerlessness. The regret was overwhelming, and so marked the end of Seo's second regression. After dying for the second time, Seo's eyes, which had gone blurry just a few seconds ago, opened again. He looked around and saw that he was in the same forest on the ascension path. Looking down, he noticed that his body was brimming with energy. Seeing that, he realized that regression wasn't just a one-time thing. As he was lost in thought, Section Chief John suddenly charged at him in anger, shouting, "Deputy Manager Seo, you bastard!" But as John swung his hand to slap him, Seo reacted instantly and dodged the attack. John kept trying to punch him, but Seo effortlessly evaded every strike. He wasn't even paying attention to John. His mind was elsewhere. Why did I regress? He wondered. He knew that a new body full of energy and a fresh opportunity was undoubtedly a good thing. But what about everything he had built over the past 50 years? Meanwhile, John was growing exhausted. Still swinging his fists, he screamed that Seo had almost gotten them all killed, and now he had the nerve to dodge? But Seo didn't respond. He just kept thinking, is this really a good thing? He already knew the truth. It wasn't. This was a curse that denied him the meaning of life. Sure, a couple of regressions might feel like a blessed opportunity, but if this were to go on forever, Seo would be trapped in fate's wheel, forced to wallow in the suffering of life until the end of time. Moreover, he couldn't even meet the people he knew in his previous life again. The people in front of him now were simply beings who shared the appearance of those he once cared for. Director Kim, whom he had thought of as an older brother, no longer existed in this world. Watching John exhausting himself with futile punches, Director Kim finally intervened, saying, "That's enough." Seo then told John to calm down and asked, "What help will being angry bring here?" Hearing that, John became even angrier and called Seo shameless. But before he could say more, Seo spoke again. "In the first place, John, you were on driving duty today. I warned you before you forced me to drive that I hadn't slept last night, because of the work you offloaded on me." Seo turned to leave and asked, "How would I have even dodged an incoming avalanche on a narrow road?" He advised John to stop pointing fingers and think instead about what they needed to do next. John was speechless. He was used to Seo always accepting blame and apologizing. Seo then turned to Director Kim and mistakenly called him by his name, just like he had in his previous life, but he immediately corrected himself. He told Director Kim that he would search for a place where they could stay before sunset and asked everyone else to look for the car or any possible way out of the forest. He added, When the sun sets, I'll light a fire, so come to it. SEO wasn't trying to please anyone anymore. He wasn't building relationships because deep down, he knew. What's the point of making bonds with people who would disappear again? In the end, he would always be alone. As the sun set, Seo lit the fire. After searching for the car, the others returned and saw the fire, Seo sitting beside it, the others asleep. But only Seo was awake, his eyes wide with fear. He feared the unending regression, the infinite loop of time. He knew this ability had to be removed and wondered if it would vanish if he somehow returned to Earth. But seeing how he always regressed back to this moment on the ascension path, he didn't know how to go home. He remembered what the old cultivator had said. When the ascension gate opens, nearby spaces destabilize. Ordinary humans could have been caught in spatial storms. Realizing that the ascension gate existed, Seo thought it must be related to why they fell into this world. And maybe, just maybe, they could return to their original world using it. He decided that first, he must grow stronger. As an ordinary mortal, he couldn't accomplish anything. He needed to become a cultivator like Director Kim and start cultivating. Once he gained a longer lifespan through cultivation, he would be able to research the ascension gate properly. That night, SEO came out of the cave. Looking up at the sky, he resolved to become a cultivator and reach the ascension gate. The next day, as the sun rose, Seo left the cave and ventured into the forest. He went to the same place where he had previously found those 1,000-year-old ginsengs. He dug out as many as he could and began eating them immediately, without stopping. As he ate them, he could feel strong chi quakes within his core. In his previous life, he hadn't known any heart methods, so eating these yellow bamboo roots would have done nothing. But now, using the Dragon Vein Chi method that Director Kim had made for him, he could break through the blocked chi passageways. SEO's heart, once extremely polluted, slowly began to cleanse itself. It started beating as it had when he was born. SEO began sweating heavily as he cultivated, but he understood. It wasn't easy to heal a body soaked in preservatives, fast food, and stress. Still, he didn't give up. He continued. After eating those ginsengs, he went to train his body. He took a tree branch and, using rocks, carefully carved it into the shape of a sword. Looking at the somewhat sword-like stick, Seo thought, that should do the work. He started swinging his sword, recalling the training he had undergone in his previous life with Director Kim. He remembered his footwork and the way he used to swing his blade. In his past life, he had only been an average second-rate martial artist, and since he hadn't practiced near the end of his life, his skills had dulled. Of course, he wasn't completely helpless. He swung his wooden sword at a nearby tree, using the Severing Mountain Sword first form. With just a wooden sword, Seo cut into the tree and left a deep mark. He could do this because the martial arts from his previous life were still all in his head. So, improving his skills was just a matter of time. But unknown to Seo, his sword practice had been witnessed by Director Kim, who had wandered into the forest. Director Kim was utterly shocked and called out from behind, asking, "What was that just now?" He ran up to Seo demanding, "How did you slash a tree with a wooden stick? Just what is that strength?" Seeing how excited Director Kim was, Seo smiled inside, thinking, "This is the man who will instruct me to become a cultivator." Seo turned to Director Kim and asked if he wanted to try learning this technique. Hearing that, Director Kim's face lit up with excitement. He asked Seo, "Can I really do it?" But before Seo could reply, something suddenly appeared and destroyed the tree where he had been practicing. It was none other than the nine-tailed fox. The nine-tailed fox glared at them angrily and shouted, "Filthy humans! How dare you play around in front of the master of this forest?" Seeing the nine-tailed fox, Director Kim was completely stunned. And not just him, even Seo grew nervous. He had completely forgotten about the nine-tailed fox. In his second life, the nine-tailed fox had mercilessly bitten off Seo's arm. At that moment, Seo knew. The only thing he could do now was endure. As the fox tore apart his arm, Seo slightly eased the pain by applying pressure to his own acupoint, because he knew he was weak. In his first life, and even in his second, he had been weak. But now, in this third life, as the nine-tailed fox appeared before him, Seo took a deep breath and walked toward it. Scared, everyone called out to Seo from behind, telling him not to go there. But Seo didn't listen and continued walking toward the nine-tailed fox. Even now, in his third regression, he still didn't know how his second life had ended that way. In his previous life, Seo had decided to become a cultivator after reaching the 5-path core. But even after learning martial arts under the best master for over 100 years, he was barely considered a second-rank mastery warrior. Seo grabbed one arm with the other and used his strength to cut off his own arm, because he knew that, compared to the people gathered here, his talent was trash. Seeing Seo cut off his own arm, everyone was shocked and terrified. Seo offered the severed arm to the nine-tailed fox to eat, because whether it took 1,000 years or 10,000, he was determined not to give up. Seeing Seo willingly offer his own arm, the nine-tailed fox laughed and said, "Human, you know your place. You know how to offer yourself as a sacrifice." The nine-tailed fox then decided to have a taste of Seo's arm. Hearing that, Seo silently resolved to offer his arm to the fox, until the day he surpassed its strength. After the fox ate Seo's arm, it allowed them to stay and then disappeared. Seo didn't care about the others. He simply went to a quiet place in the forest and kept swinging his sword. After a few days, the cultivators healed his arm and escorted his colleagues away. But Seo didn't eat, sleep, or rest. He kept swinging his sword. The only reason he stopped swinging on the 4th day was because the Sea Dragon King arrived. Seo greeted the Sea Dragon King with respect and said, "This lowly mortal dares to ask the Sea Dragon King a question." Seeing how respectful Seo was, the Sea Dragon King allowed him to speak. Seo asked, "It seems the Sea Dragon King wishes to take Miss O, but Miss O is just an ordinary person without spiritual roots, and ordinary humans cannot live longer than 100 years. So, what are your intentions toward her?" Hearing that, the Sea Dragon King laughed and said that Seo was quite an observant mortal, someone who understood the state of cultivators well, but he told them not to worry. Once Miss O accepted his blood, she would awaken spiritual roots suitable for her. Seo was surprised to hear that, and asked the Sea Dragon King if, perhaps, he could give them a chance as well, since Miss O was from the same hometown, and maybe they too might possess some hidden ability. Hearing that, the Sea Dragon King smiled and told Seo to listen carefully. Just as he said that, Seo felt an overwhelming pressure on his chest and collapsed to the ground. The Sea Dragon King said, "I will say one thing out of concern. Do not carelessly express your opinions to a high-ranking cultivator like me. We have lived for hundreds, even thousands of years. We see what mortals cannot see. We know what mortals do not know." He looked at Seo with glowing green eyes and continued, "You have a good temperament, so I'll let it slide, but there are cruel ones who, just because your eyes met theirs, would tear you apart like insects and kill you." Saying that, the Sea Dragon King walked out of the cave with Miss O, then transformed into his dragon form and flew back into the sky. Seeing the Sea Dragon King's true form, Director Kim was completely shocked. The next day, as the weather cleared and everyone came out of the cave, they encountered the old cultivator riding a mechanical lion. As the old cultivator appeared, Seo stepped forward, greeted him, and asked, "Our colleague Miss Kim is just an ordinary person without spiritual roots, so how could she possibly become your disciple?" Hearing that, the old cultivator laughed and took out an elixir, telling Seo that it was a very precious one, capable of opening spiritual channels. If taken, even an ordinary person might gain the chance to become immortal. Seo was shocked to hear that there was another way to become a cultivator. The old cultivator explained that it was possible for mortals to reach the realm of the five-path core by pushing their martial arts to the extreme, but that path took far too long and the results were unsatisfactory. So this method, through elixirs, was the best. After telling them everything, the old cultivator opened a portal to the mortal world and sent them into it, saying that both of them were useless to him now and should just get lost. Both Seo and Director Kim fell into the teleportation portal, while Miss Kim could only watch them disappear, screaming. Seo lost consciousness there, and the next time he opened his eyes, he found himself hanging from a tree branch above the ground. Looking ahead, he saw a vast forest with some buildings in the distance. Seeing that, Seo realized this was the southwestern root army of the Yan Kingdom from his past life. Just like in the second regression, he had wandered all over the Yan Kingdom with Director Kim. Having traveled the Yan Kingdom for over 100 years, there were almost no places he didn't know now. Seo climbed down from the tree and woke up Director Kim. After waking him up, both of them headed toward a nearby castle. Seo explained the situation to Director Kim, who seemed flustered, but perhaps because so much had already happened, he accepted most of it. A few days later, they arrived at the nearest Tiger Wall Castle. There, they sold herbal medicine from the Immortal Ascending Village and bought a house. Seo began teaching Director Kim how to write and speak the local language, as well as how to use the Severing Mountain Blade, which Director Kim had originally created in his second regression. SEO even modified the technique to better suit the weapon Kim used. As he watched Director Kim train, Seo felt a bit disappointed with himself because Director Kim had reached the Three Blossoms Crown Peak just 3 months after starting martial arts training, while Seo had spent 2 entire lifetimes just to barely reach the first-rate level. After reaching peak level, Director Kim got excited and said, "If it's now, I think I could even beat you." Hearing that, Seo smiled, realizing the man in front of him wasn't the same big brother he once served in a past life. This Director Kim was mentally much younger than him. In terms of how long Seo had lived, he was now old enough to be Director Kim's grandfather, so Seo decided he shouldn't stay with him in this life. He gave Director Kim martial arts scrolls and the exhausting record of transcending, a book Kim had created in his previous life. He told Director Kim that from today onward, he would be going his own way. Hearing that, Director Kim was shocked and asked, "What do you mean by that? Did I make a mistake? Is that why you're leaving? What's the reason?" When Director Kim asked for a reason, Seo remembered what had happened during his first regression. Director Kim had become the Martial Alliance leader, but fell into despair after losing to the Cultivators. The second regression wasn't much different. Director Kim developed the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts, then created the record of martial arts surpassing through cultivation. He fought against the cultivators, but in the end, he was overwhelmed by a stronger one and fell to the ground. After that, Director Kim disappeared, saying he would become a cultivator, abandoning the path of martial arts. And Seo thought, maybe this life would end the same way. But this time, he no longer wanted to see his brother Kim fall into that same despair again. So Seo made an excuse, telling Director Kim that he wanted to travel alone to improve his skills. Hearing that, Director Kim asked Seo if he couldn't just do that with him. He questioned, "How am I supposed to live without you?" Seo told Director Kim that with his martial arts skills at the current level, he should be able to live just fine. He reminded him that he had already taught him how to speak, write, and even practice martial arts. Now that Director Kim was a top expert, there was nothing more to worry about. But Director Kim still wasn't convinced. He asked Seo, "Do I really have to be separated from my hometown friends again?" Seo was surprised to hear that. So, he told Director Kim, "Starting from today, let's meet here once every 2 years." Hearing that, Director Kim finally agreed. After persuading Director Kim, who was feeling lonely, Seo left the house. Sometime later, a disciple of the 8 Stronghold Pavilion came out and asked, "What's this commotion in front of the 8 Stronghold Pavilion?" The person he asked was Seo. Seo greeted him and replied that he had come to request a duel at the 8 Stronghold Pavilion. Hearing this, the disciple laughed and said, "This pavilion is not a place where just anyone can show up." But before the disciple could finish his words, Seo drew his sword and swung, cutting down the disciple's blade in a single strike, shocking everyone nearby. After cutting the blade, Seo asked the disciple, "Do I still look like a nobody to you?" Seo had made up his mind. He was determined. He would definitely become stronger. After challenging the 8 Stronghold Pavilion and breaking one of their disciples' blades, Seo was welcomed inside. Once inside, a girl came to escort him. She politely asked him to follow her to the inner quarters, saying that the sect leader was waiting there. Seo followed the girl into the inner quarters, where she led him to an arena. The sect leader was already waiting, and the audience was made up of the disciples of the 8 Stronghold Pavilion. When the sect leader saw Seo, he smiled and said he was curious to see who this first-rate master would be, only to find such a young junior. Seo respectfully greeted him, saying, "This humble one, Seo Yun-hyun, greets the sect leader of Palgyeonggak." Hearing that, the sect leader laughed and praised Seo, saying his energy was extraordinary. Seo returned the praise, complimenting the sect leader's powerful presence, and asked him for his guidance. Without hesitation, the sect leader drew his weapon, a spear whip. Swinging it skillfully, he said, "Then I shall begin first." Seo also drew his sword, preparing for battle. The sect leader moved with lightning speed, aiming at Seo's legs, but Seo quickly dodged. However, that attack was just a feint. As Seo leapt into the air, the sect leader infused energy into his spear whip and launched another attack, this time aimed at Seo's head. It took Seo by surprise, but he countered effortlessly by moving his sword with lightning speed, deflecting the attack. The disciples of the 8 Stronghold Pavilion were shocked to see their sect leader's 9-section whip being blocked by a sword. Observing Seo's reaction speed, the sect leader was impressed and said, "Young warrior, you've achieved the state of sword-body unity. you're already at the late stage of first rate. SEO humbly praised the sect leader in return, acknowledging that he had completely merged with martial arts. He added that, thanks to their exchange, he had gained insight into a new technique. The sect leader laughed and replied, "To be at my level at such a young age, SEO, you truly are a genius." Hearing the word genius, Seo laughed. To him, being called a genius wasn't a compliment. It might be surprising that someone who looked to be in his late 20s had reached such a high level, one that normally takes decades of training. Seo smiled and thanked the sect leader for complimenting his insufficient talent. In truth, Seo believed he was just one of countless mediocre dullards in the world. Heaven hadn't granted him talent, but even as such a dullard, through regression, he had trained his martial arts to a level comparable to a true genius. Seo thought to himself, regression. Perhaps that is both my ability and my opportunity. And with that thought, he decided to become a genius. Pointing his sword at the sect leader, Seo declared that he would now use sword energy. The sect leader nodded and replied that he too would go all out. Seo then used the first move of the Duan Yue sword art and struck at the sect leader. The sect leader swiftly dodged to the right, avoiding the attack, but Seo didn't give him a chance to counter. He immediately used the second move, entering the mountain, and attacked from below. The sect leader blocked it with his spear whip and stepped back. Seo charged forward again, using the third move, ascending the vein, to attack. The sect leader once more blocked the strike. He then stepped back and unleashed his energy, infusing it into the spear whip before attacking again. He swung with lightning speed, launching attacks from multiple directions in an attempt to overwhelm Seo. But Seo didn't falter. He blocked every strike. The sect leader was shocked. What is this monstrous sword art that I can't break through, he wondered. The sect leader aimed once again at Seo's legs, trying to disrupt his balance, but it was no use. Seo jumped and dodged once more. While Seo was midair, he used the seventh move of the Duan Yue sword art, Deed Mountain, and charged straight at the sect leader with incredible speed. It looked as if Seo was attacking with 1,000 swords, and the sect leader was unable to dodge. He couldn't predict Seo's sword trajectory and barely managed to evade, only to have his cheek sliced. Seeing this, the disciples of the 8 Stronghold Pavilion were shocked, exclaiming, "This can't be!" Seo's sword speed was increasing with every move. Then, Seo unleashed the 11th move, destroying the ground. The sect leader jumped back and dodged, but the disciples were stunned. It wasn't just Seo's speed, the sword was gaining destructive power as well. Seo charged again, this time with an energy-infused strike. The sect leader blocked it with his own energy-infused spear whip. The collision released a massive burst of energy. After taking Seo's attack head-on, the sect leader's hand began to tremble. Seeing this, Seo decided to end the fight here. He leapt high into the sky and used the 12th move, 7 Lights Emerging Peak. The sect leader also prepared to strike, but Seo swung his energy-infused sword with such overwhelming speed and force that it shattered the sect leader's spear whip into thousands pieces, completely stunning everyone. Not just the sect leader, even the disciples of the 8 Stronghold Pavilion were in shock. Seo's attack didn't just destroy the spear whip, it also cut the sect leader's hand. Gripping his injured hand in pain, the sect leader admitted defeat. Upon hearing that, Seo immediately sheathed his sword and respectfully greeted the sect leader, saying it had been a valuable opportunity. With that, he left the arena. Their match had completely destroyed the battleground. After defeating the sect leader of the 8 Stronghold Pavilion, Seo departed from the sect. As he walked out, everyone stared at him in silent awe. It had been a clean and honorable fight. Seo remembered that Palgyeonggak had been famous even in his past life as a righteous sect that didn't resort to cowardly acts. Inspired by this, he decided to visit a demonic sect next. Through these martial duels, Seo thought, in this life, I must reach the peak realm. As time passed, Seo visited about 4 more minor sects in Seogyeongsong. Among them, he lost duels at Iljubo and Hyeongmun, but won against sects like Gaejubang and Yukgyolbo. Eventually, he arrived at Hoedangpa, where he fought one of their warriors. Seo cut down the warrior's blade and sent him flying with a single blow. The warrior crashed near his sect master and was knocked unconscious from Seo's overwhelming attack. Seeing this, the sect leader of Hoedangpa laughed and said, "So the young first-rate master who's been challenging sects all over Seogyeongsong recently was you after all." He told Seo that he had witnessed his skills well. Seo respectfully greeted him and said he too had learned a lot. Just then, many warriors emerged from the door behind the sect leader. The sect leader turned to Seo and asked if he was ready, because now it was the turn of the 10 elders. Seo was stunned. What is this? He thought. Is this the demonic sect's way? He asked the sect leader. Didn't the duel just end with my victory? I've never heard of continuous battles or a 10-on-1 duel. With a sly smirk, the sect leader replied, Really? Didn't you just hear? Hearing that, Seo realized the sect leader was playing with words. Trying to intimidate him, Seo said, If I publicly reveal today's cowardice to the other sects, Hoedangpa's reputation will plummet. The sect leader laughed and replied, I don't care, because you'll get injured in this duel, that injury will get infected, and you'll die of tetanus. The sect leader told Seo that the people would believe their sect had taken great care of him, and that despite their best efforts, Seo had unfortunately passed away. As the 10 elders stepped forward, the sect leader laughed and said, How can a dead man spread a different rumor? This situation was even worse than Seo had anticipated. They're absolute lunatics, he thought. All the elders pointed their swords at Seo. The sect leader declared that if they killed him here, it wouldn't affect their reputation. It sounded extremely dangerous. But Seo smiled. This was exactly why he came. He pulled out his sword and challenged the sect leader, saying he would accept this absurd duel. The 10 elders charged at Seo, and thus began a true battle. As the sun set over Hoedangpa, the streets of the city lit up in celebration. People filled the inns, drinking and enjoying the evening. At one table, a drunk man told his friends, I heard the young master who's been challenging every sect to duels went to fight Hoedangpa this time. What a pity for such a talented youth. His friend nodded. Challenging an illegal organization like the evil sect? That's just asking to die. A third chimed in. That's how it is when you're young, thinking the world will go your way? A kind of innocence, I suppose. Another man from a nearby table stood up and scoffed. That guy relied too much on his skill and acted recklessly. He brought about his own death. Hoedangpa may look like a sect, but inside, it's nothing more than a bandit's den. He's probably buried by now. Just then, the door to the inn creaked open. A man stepped in, his shoes soaked in blood. The waiter turned to welcome the guest, but froze in shock. It was Seo, his body covered in blood and dotted with minor injuries. He calmly ordered a bowl of noodles. The entire inn fell silent. The waiter nervously gestured. Please, come in and sit down. Seo walked forward, and as he passed, everyone instinctively lowered their heads. None dared meet his eyes. It was the natural reaction. His expression was terrifying. Seo was furious at those maniacs from Hoedangpa. He had almost died. It hadn't just been 10 against 1. They'd even poisoned their weapons, cowardly striking his back. It was fortunate Seo had studied top-tier medicine during his time as a strategist for the Martial Alliance. If he hadn't taken the antidote pills and stimulants he had prepared in advance, he would have surely died. He killed all 10 elders. But just before the end, the crazed old sect leader gave a desperate final order. He shouted for all his disciples to kill Seo no matter what. Soon, a horde of foot soldiers armed with spears and arrows swarmed the area, forming a battle formation. Seo fought like a beast. No techniques, no form, just sheer will to survive. Yet he endured. He cut the meridians of the surviving enemies to cripple them, ensuring they'd never seek revenge. And then, he finished it. He killed their sect leader. Now, sitting at the table, Seo looked at his own trembling hand. Perhaps from the excessive stimulants. The tension wouldn't go away. He sighed, knowing he wouldn't sleep for days. Grabbing his sword again, he understood. He had to duel another orthodox sect next. After finishing his bowl of noodles, Seo stood up and walked out of the inn, revealing a large bleeding cut across his back. No one said a word. They simply watched, stunned. The young master, after surviving a brutal battle with Hoedangpa, had calmly eaten noodles and immediately left for another duel. That crazy young man quickly became the talk of the city, and so Seogyeong City buzzed with excitement. People began calling him by a new name, one that echoed through taverns, streets, and martial halls alike. The infinite fighting monster, Seo Yun-hyun. Seo continued fighting relentlessly, fully aware that he had no talent, and that the path to the pinnacle he sought was infinitely distant. That was precisely why he had to fight constantly, pushing forward by crossing the boundaries between life and death. He believed that a man without talent had no choice but to go mad in order to break through the wall that stood in his way. If there is no talent, there must be madness. That was the only way for a dullard to catch up to a genius. And so, Seo scoured Seogyeong City and traveled across various regions of Yongguk, engaging in duels multiple times a day, regardless of whether the sects were orthodox or evil. Like that, 5 years passed. One day, a sudden explosion occurred in front of a house. Seo soared into the air and unleashed the 14th form of his mountain-breaking sword art, Q Mountain Heart Stream. He gathered energy from nature, energy as solid as a mountain, its heart as vast as the heavens. But even as he summoned it, Seo began to struggle. The form, a sword thread technique that could only be used upon reaching the pinnacle, put an enormous strain on his mind just by briefly manifesting it. But Seo knew, if he didn't do it this way, he'd never catch up. Suddenly, a black figure appeared behind him, launching a surprise attack. Seo turned and blocked it with his sword, but the force was overwhelming. Cracks spread through his blade. The strike sent him crashing into the ground, slamming him into a wall with such force that it blasted a hole straight through it. With just one hit, all of Seo's sword energy had been shattered. The figure laughed as he walked towards Seo and said, "Your reputation precedes you. I had quite high hopes, but you're still clumsy, young Master Seo, the infinite fighting monster." Stepping out from the smoke, the figure revealed himself. Seo's eyes widened. It was Director Kim, the one known as the greatest under heaven, Kim Young-hoon. Seo stood up, impressed. "You've gotten even stronger than last year," he said. And he was right. Director Kim had undergone a complete transformation in just 5 years. Looking down at the sword marks on his own hands, Seo couldn't help but reflect. What on earth have I done these past 5 years? His realm was still stuck at top tier. With a bitter expression, Seo admitted to himself that talent truly is something that makes a person feel miserable. Once things settled down, Seo asked, "What brings you here, Director Kim? Didn't we agree to meet every 2 years?" Director Kim replied, "After attaining the realm of 5 energies converging to the origin and visiting the great sects of Yangguo, I've come to realize something." Seo asked. Director Kim's answer was blunt. "There's no one left above me in all of Yongguk. Not a single person can even take one of my moves. That's why I'm planning to establish a new sect, or an organization of some sort, and I want to offer you a seat." But Seo immediately declined. "I'm comfortable with where I am now," he said. Looking at Director Kim, Seo thought to himself, he's already developed the martial lord's disease. Seo knew that if he accepted the offer, even in this life, he'd end up becoming a strategist or vice-sect leader, working himself to the bone. But with his limited talent, every minute, every second, was precious. Director Kim warned, "Once I establish the organization, it might be difficult to meet again." He tried persuading Seo, saying, "You could still stick around. Join me for some guidance duels maybe." But Seo declined again. "No matter what you offer," he said firmly, "I won't accept." Hearing this, Director Kim looked deeply saddened. It had been a good offer, genuine, well-meant, but Seo turned it down because he had already received plenty of Director Kim's teachings in his past life. What he needed now was not guidance, but real-world experience. In Seo's past life, Director Kim had once told him that after reaching the late stages of first rate, he should strive to experience as much real combat as possible. So, in this life, Seo chose to follow that advice, to merely observe Director Kim's saga from afar, while continuing his own endless journey in search of battle. And so, another 20 years passed. One rainy day, Director Kim arrived at the old house where they used to meet. He opened the creaky door and stepped inside, calling out to Seo, "You look pale." Seo was already there, waiting. Time had aged him. His hair had grayed. His face bore countless scars and cut marks. But above all, his expression was heavy, deeply sorrowful and worn. Because after all this time, Seo had finally come to accept the truth. His talent was a talent abandoned by the heavens.